Today I have a horn of wine to read of the Emperor's wineskins. Spent the weekend camping, going into secret waterfalls and frolicking in the waves, and you don't care. Do you? Fine. Instead of continuing on with that diatribe, I'd like you to join me in reading chapter 49, 1062. My Lord King, what are your orders? Harold stood, proud upon the ship, his ship. Hands clasped behind his back, he wore his famous mail shirt and a lavish gold and purple cape, a circlet of gold upon his head. He was the image of a king, the physical manifestation of power and wealth. All was his. Almost. He looked out over the water at the fleet. Some 300 ships gathered together for the arranged warring. 150 professional fighting vessels, and another of that many for the support. This was the ultimate battle, or it was to be, when Harold and Svein met. He'd issued the challenge the year before. He'd had a brand new Drachar built and named it the Serpent. He'd spent the winter gathering the strongest, largest host that Norway had ever assembled. This was it, the final battle and the final place, and Svein was nowhere to be seen. His attendant Einar stood at the side, still awaiting a response. He breathed slowly through his nose, luxuriating in the sensation of making everyone wait for him. The king was not to be rushed. The king was not to be commanded. The king was to be obeyed in all things and at all moments. Svein is afraid. He'd rather suffer his people through endless war than face me here now, where we agreed to meet. He's a coward. I condemn this cowardice. He turned to Einar and Theodolfr, his skald. Send the civilian fleet back. We need not the support they give us. What of the professional sailors, Lord King? Asked Einar. We are here. We have come ready for a fight. We're armed. We're ready. We spent the winter preparing. We will spend the summer raiding. The whole summer. This is the largest fleet I have ever assembled for war. Every raiding vessel and prepared warrior in all of Norway. We will not waste this moment. Instruct the fleet to spread out through the cowards' lands and tell them that we are fighting under the banner of the Land Ravager, my proud warring banner. They are to lay waste to these lands. There will be no reprieve from my vengeance upon Svein, and all the North will tremble at my power. Both Einar and Theodolfr were moved by the passion and shouting from their king, though they could not help but to note that he seemed more disappointed than anything. Yes, Lord King, I shall instruct them immediately. Harold returned to his silent brooding. What a damn waste this was. All these ships, steel, men, provisions, and a preparation, all for nothing. It was like watching the greatest cook fire ever made be left unattended and watch it wither out after hours of a blaze to no damned effect at all. All he could do now was to gather together the cinders and choke Svein's people with them. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. The Brynulf rose and fell in the calm waves of the morning. Stationary in the bay, it was among the hundreds of other ships that were apparently here doing nothing. It had been a strange decision made to join with Harold's great fleet to attack Spain, but the army who'd spent the whole winter recruiting every warship capable of sailing were not ones to be denied peaceably. What the hell are they doing? Asked Ragnar. He spent the last raiding season healing from his arrow wound, but had made a full recovery. What? Asked Niels, looking over. Are they leaving? Looks looks like it. Why are they leaving? Asked Skadhild. Are we retreating? No, Fitbjorn said, looking over everything. Look, it's only the support vessels that are leaving. Harold must be sending them home. What? That's our support. Why in hell they going home? There are whole feasts on those ship, Canute said. Aye, well, think of the crop, Fitbjorn said. It was quite the thing to get. To get us all out here like this. It's the middle of summer. There is work that needs to be done back in the kingdom. We can't be expected to leave all that to rot for not enough hands. Look, there's a crier, Oliver said, pointing. Hi there, shouted a man from another ship nearby. What goes? Svein isn't coming, the king's man said. No shit, replied the man aboard the ship, and everyone laughed. The crier looked certainly disappointed by the disrespect, but knew there was nothing he could do to a man aboard his own ship. Now what? We sail south along the Haaland and raid along the coast. You are instructed all to leave, but fire in your wake. That sounds like the herald I know, Fitbjorn remarked, and a cheer arose from all those who'd heard the crier's words. Oars out, Fitbjorn ordered. Steer us on a southward heading and ready to pull along the rest of the fleet. The sail is coming out as soon as we have the wind. Aye, Lord, everyone aboard the Brynluf shouted together. They all busied to movement, just like every other warship present. This isn't what we came for, Lord. I know. We're to be warring, not raiding farms, settlements, and fishing villages. I know. What are we going to do? What we're ordered to do. Kill in the day, feast in the night. We do what we know how to do. My lord, he sighed. For the next few days, the great fleet of Harold of Norway devastated the coasts of the Danes. The shores were razed for their goods, for their allegiances, for their location. The fleet was steered everywhere by the great Drakar at the front called the Serpent. They were led into a place called the Lufafjord and laid waste the country there. Some had guessed that it was Harold's intent to draw out Svein with his terrible raiding, but all knew that the bounty and plunder being won and the devastating blow to the Danish peoples were as much reward as the battle might have been. And yet, none were ready for the sight that came to greet them on the 9th of August during their raid. They were arrayed in the fjord and readied themselves for another day of pillaging, when in the distance it was announced a growing line of sailcloth broke over the horizon. Jesus, Ivar said. Well, Lord King, it looked like Svein's come. I can see that. Too damn well long enough. Harold stood with Ivar and his son Hakon, as well as Einar his attendant, Theodorfr his skald, and another of his lords named Eric of Trondalag. Looks like it's time to go, said Ivar the White. There is place to escape through. We are outnumbered. That looks like twice the ships we have, confirmed Einar. We have already won some victories here, concurred Eric. Now is our time to fight. What? Harold shouted. The others quieted instantly. I can barely warrant what I am hearing. Fly? Fly? from this my best fight since Mecklegard? No, 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 you all. Sooner shall all lie dead one upon another than fly. He spoke with utter confidence and emphasized each word with severe pronunciation. Are you cowards? No, you are not cowards, never cowards. You are the fighting lords and the brave lords of the King Harald Sigurdsson of Norway. Do not you ever contemplate fight from such a battle. They have twice our number, then we shall have the greater fight. Signal the fleet. We charge toward our foe. But Lord King will be scattered, Ivar said. Håkon Ivarsson, Harold answered. I will give you command of our right flank. To the great ships of the Trondelag, I shall deliver the left flank. We in the center shall smash at them at single and unbroken line, a shield wall of ship. My king, you honor me, and how shall we avoid the drift? How do we maintain line? Håkon asked. We lash our ships all together. Save for your flank. We make it impossible to split apart while keeping you as our flying raven to pick them apart and skirmish them when needed. Do as I say. The flanks shall be like a cavalry, to ride in and cover where needed, and the rest shall become a land battle, Håkon realized. At sea, rope! All the rope that is not being used, take what is left and tie the ships together at 3 points each. Go now and deliver my orders, and make for the front, and we make for the fight. Håkon and Ivar looked at each other with impressed expressions. Yes, Lord King. Harold put a hand on their shoulders, father and son. At the end of this day, I will show you my victory. They each put a hand over his and nodded their head in a bow. By God, I shall join you in your victories. It will be my life's honor. And make sure all of you, Harold said loudly, no one is tempted to fire their ships. I foresee us becoming an island of war in this fjord. A fire anywhere is a fire everywhere. What do you think, White Bear? Should we just retreat now? There's no way the king is going to send us up against so solid a wall of wood and steel as that, Osmond said. He will call a retreat. I don't think he will, Fitbjorn replied. He won't be called away from this. That is my guess. Ready your arms, stow all the food and plunder as well. We are going to get rocked by the coming waves. He looked off in the distance and saw the prow of the great warring Drakar called the Serpent. No, Harold, you aren't going anywhere, are you? You're charging right down the line. He grinned to himself. You heard, Lord Nameless. G'e on to working, ye dogs, Ragnar commanded, and the crew all rushed about their duty. Tie the ships, shouted a distant voice. Lash all sides together and face the Danish fleet. The order was reiterated in more detail and spread far and to all. Of course, Fitbjorn said. A wall of wood and steel, that's what we'll make ourselves. Get the rope, tie us off to each to the other. Throw lines to the other ships and pull us in together. Lord, we're a little bigger than these other ships, Niels remarked. Then once more shall we be the point of the spear, and mine shall be the first honor to pierce into our enemy. His excitement transferred with perfect efficiency to the whole crew, and they all jumped to their work. They threw the lines, pulled together ship sides, tied safe the cargo, and put up the sail. 36 men and women aboard the Brynulf then secured tight their armor straps, brandished their bright steel weapons, and roared together in readiness for a battle. On the flanks, to left and right, were to remain unlashed and mobile, that they could adapt to the battle as needed. These wings went forward ahead of the main contingent and began to launch volleys of arrows, spears, and sling stones at one another. The fighting commenced. When the centers were in close enough proximity, they too started the actions of the distance fight. Ragnar and Gisle, being the two most trusted archers on the Brynjolf, led in command, instructing every one of the crew to draw and loose, all the time being careful to watch the darkened sky and ready to protect themselves or indeed each other if they needed to from enemy shafts. And then the armies of the northern sea realms sunk into the sea, Fitbjorn said with a smirk. He saw that soon the time to meet the enemy with close steel approached. Ready the raging mead, friends, warriors, you fighting Einherjar, who await only the kiss of metal and the sight of Valhall. Drink once more the blood of beast spirit. Cast off the skin of men, you each. Take on the power of the wolf, the bear. Take the eyes of the raven, the slippery nature of the snake. Take the fire within the great North Ox. Each of his crew was already prepared to do exactly this. The horns of white and black were out, and they dipped into the prepared vision mead that held the rage mushrooms and the blood of great animals' power. The bears drank of the black, the wolves drank of the white. They then waited for the transformation of their Hjögr. It would come. Lay waste, and fear no death. Ho, ho, ho! The winds caught the numerous sails that were set, and the great mass entity of the Norway's fleet lurched with straining groans forward. The floating island lumbered as one and made straight for Svein's ships, which he seemed to have tied together as well to mirror the Norse formation. There existed an unspeakable calm in the space between the fleets. For a blessed and sublime instance, the time everything was still, and each warrior felt it. The risen energy of the fight to come was slowed within each of them. They all felt a profound and palpable quiet. It was a silence none wanted to break. The fleet drifted toward each other, the wind at the back of the Norse fleet, their paths inexorably drawn together. They had nothing to do but wait for the waves to crash, and they would. Every heartbeat, every breath, every second of time brought them closer to the moment of collision, a moment where the changing of kings was inevitable. Fitbjorn felt again that strange and wonderful sense of presence and purpose. Here was the relaxed calm of a confident warrior, alone but for the host of an enemy before him. It felt like he was the only man to face down this great host of enemies. Could ever a man do such a thing? And then, as the fleets were separated by only the span, only of one ship's length, the wild and frantic energy of battle fury fell upon the minds of the warriors all. For those aboard the Brynjolf, that madness energy tumbled like a howling avalanche. Each wanted blood. Each wanted death. Each felt such significant life. The ship's prows crashed into each other with a horrific, violent boom. The first moment of the battle was a sawing teeth of dragons ripping at each other, and then the beasts aboard the dragons leapt to destroy each other. Ooh! Fitbjorn shouted as he launched from the mouth of a dragon, a two-handed axe raging with the fury of his assault. He landed upon the enemy's ship and clove the axe head into a Danish warrior with a vicious power. The Danish sailor aboard the ships were shocked to see a warrior so eager to kill and die, but they hesitated not a moment and charged to swarm him. At that moment, 4 arrows flew from the dragon's storm hunter behind the berserker and stopped their advance. Fitbjorn lay his attack into a Danish warrior with such ravage aggression that he knew he slowed their very movement by the magic of his fury and initiative. Ragnar and Canute then jumped to the ship, and Skadhild arrived on the other side and joined the fight with Osmund. 5 archers stayed aboard the Brynjolf and watched the fight beyond the railing, while everyone else leapt across. The archers were led by Gisle, and their task was to watch and make sure none got the upper hand in a fight against their friends. They each had an arrow nocked and were stood 2 to the to either side of the dragon head of the snake ship. The final archer was a man named Halfdan, who waited in the center of the front benches and watched for anyone who might try and board from any side. He had an arrow nocked and half drawn. He was by far the quickest to draw on the longship and had been tasked many times as the protector of the archer's line in Brynjolf's formations. The plan had been made to clear out the fighters on the first ship and then hold the center point that other Norse soldiers could join their split and push to the side. They knew the fighting would be savage, but they had not expected the warriors on this ship to be as strong and resist for as long as they did. When finally they had killed all the Danes on their first ship, they stood in the blood and death and fight and were all breathing hard. But they were still the Ulfhednar and berserkers of the Brynjolf. They were not done. The battle raged. War was fought on all sides by great and brave warriors, and the King Harald Sigurdsson watched with nervous, frantic excitement. This was it. It had to be. He stood here in everything he'd made as king. He had the Land Ravager banner flying over him, the gold crown-rimmed helmet upon his head. He wore his impenetrable mail shirt that is called Emma. He stood aboard his great Drakar called the Serpent and surveyed his great army fighting with his bitter foe. This is the day. This is when it ends in the Danelands, and I can go take England. He spoke to himself. None else needed to hear his prophecies but for he, and he knew them to be prophecy. To his right was the proud warrior Håkon Ivarsson and his unbound vessels who had clashed first with Svein's leftmost flank. Still, they fought with awful clamor. I want to be fighting, Harold said, though this he said aloud for his close attendants to hear. My lord, the king must not enter into pitched battle, Einar said to him. I am king. I am a warrior too, though. I have fought more battles on the first line than you'd care to even guess. That was before you were king. And I crave the frenzy and noise of battle now. I will go there and put death to my enemy, he shouted in wild fervor and tried to push his way past Einar. Then you will have to kill me first, Einar shouted back. Everyone on the king's ship froze. There were attendants and servants and guards all staring at the younger, smaller man physically held back the actual king. Harold looked completely and utterly shocked at the display of normally quiet and reliable servant. What? That is chaos! We were supposed to retreat today. That's probably what Svein wanted. But when we didn't, and he was allowed to enter into a battle against half his number, he must have been praising God for his fortune. We didn't run because we trust you, King Harold. The battle has become a contest of ships between two readied armies. The first time this has happened in our world that I know of. We cannot say what will come of this. You cannot go into that chaos. Your leadership cannot be threatened to fall to an enemy's axe or a far-flung arrow. What would we do if you fell? Are you so eager to die that you will risk the lives of every warrior here, for you have nothing of your guidance? I love you, Harold. You are the father I wish I'd been blessed with. I will not let you go past this place and enter into the holy, uncertain tumult of battle. Kill me if you must, and consider this my last and only act to defy you, Lord King. Harald Sigurdsson, King of Norway, breathed in and out in a measured pace. He'd never seen such passion from the man. They both breathed deeply at the exchange and stared at each other, both bewildered at what Einar had just done and said. It was, as is proper, Harold who broke first among them and sighed audibly as he shook his head. He put a hand onto Einar's shoulder and then brought him close to put an arm around him. Many could see there was a tear in his eye. Delicious. Einar, he said again, you put me in an impossible position, my friend. Do I execute you for treason or kill you for saving my life? He breathed out again, a long and powerful exhale. I think no king has ever had so faithful a servant as you, Einar. Long have I known that you are my most trustworthy. I could never have you killed. I could never do it myself. He grunted in anger. Thank you, my lord king. King Harold, the left flank is breaking, lord, shouted the lookout. What? He asked, now distressed and forgetting the moment. What of Hakan? He called back. The man looked into the distance with a hand over his brow. I think, yes, he has beaten back his side. The Danes, there are breaking. Send word. Have him circle back around and support the left flank now. Aye, my king. When this is done, Harold said to Einar, and we have won this day, you and I shall drink together. I think I owe you my whole kingdom, man. Don't worry. I shall remind you of it sometime. Harold and Einar laughed together. Drink, the white bear commanded. Get the water into you and secure this deck. There are more there, and others will be coming to reclaim the ship. They cannot let us have this, and so they will crash upon us to get it back. Where now? Niels growled. Fitbjorn had taken the white horn. For today's fight, he would take the aspect of the wolf for his Hugur. We can't push to the next row of the ships there. What? I see when I would kill. We have to hold this place and make it a place the rest of the people can come through. How do we do that? Stay here and do nothing? An arrow flew overhead and slew a man jumping from the second row of ships. Both of them watched the man be sent back down to the water. No, they're in that. More bows. Get as many as we can hold to them and shit! He pushed Niels down and ducked himself as a Dane loosed an arrow at them. The arrow passed over their heads and only narrowly missed striking Niels in the back. They saw it go straight into the leg of Skad Hild, who was on their other side. Gah! Fuck! She screamed. Gisle took the archer in the throat with an arrow a second later. Now we need to get Skad Hild back onto the ship. I feel no pain, she said, standing. She reached down and snapped off the exposed tip of the arrow with a grunt. This fight is not done, and if you mean to hold this place, then we have to have every fucking one of us here. Upon second glance, Fitbjorn realized there were still hundreds of warriors about them, and that his taking of this ship meant that might be their undoing. It was well fought, and a victory to claim, but without reinforcements, they would all die valiant deaths. Then he looked and saw Canute hailing someone with a wave and inviting them over. It appeared that he was trying to rally more support from the ships, though there was chaotic fighting everywhere. It was clear, in fact, that other sections of Norse line must have taken a ship as well, and that the Danes had probably had success elsewhere. The battle was skewed in favor of the Danish force for their numbers, and they had to respect that, or they would be overrun in a moment. We hold here. We make this place the lands we soak with enemy blood, and put to sacrifice to the gods, to the war gods, with our great slaughter. The archers stay and do what they can, but we need to kill as many damn men as possible. The crew of the Brynolfell cried a rallied war cry together as they heard their lord's words and formed organized shield walls to defend their sides. They knew it couldn't be a full string of successive victories after victory. They would have to stay aboard and struggle in the fight. Any ground they could capture, they would have to do slowly. The battle was hard fought. It was a vicious contest where both sides pushed and retreated and met and died. It was battle that Harold Sigurdsson claimed a victory at. The Skald and warriors were already calling it the Battle of Nisa River, that was the main inflow to the bay where they had fought him. Harold and the Norse fought a brutal fight against a determined foe while they had nowhere to run. The free ships of Håkon were sailing around the battle and offering support to ferrying forces to where the fighting needed it most. Once it became apparent that there was no victory to be had for the Danes, they began to cut loose their ships and row away from the battling Norse. Once the Danish ships started to break from their gathering, it was done, and all others lost their resolve to the fight. Harold himself led a force of 100 men to the flagship of his bitter rival Svein and slaughtered everyone aboard the decks. He stood there triumphant, victorious over great and horrid odds, and did not even now have the victory he wanted over Svein. Svein Olsen was nowhere aboard the ship. Harold ran to the stern of the ship and looked around at the many scattered and fleeing Danish vessels. He knew that somewhere aboard one of those ships was his rival, and he'd lost him again. He ordered Haakon and the ablest of ships and sailors to pursue those fleeing, but he had a great opportunity still in the dozens of ships that were now his for the taking. His force depleted, he knew he wouldn't have them all, but he'd divide up the remaining force he had to pilot as many home as he could. Additionally, he promised anyone who brought their own skate that they could keep whatever they could tow. The day was his. The prize was a new fleet of ships to bring home. The day was his, and the enemy was shattered. The Battle of Nisa. What an incredible, wonderful, horrifying battle that would have been. Apparently, Harold faced off against an army literally double the size of his own, 150 of his own ships, 300 enemy ships. So goes the legends. What were the real numbers? How many men? How many axes? Arrows, shields, swords? We'll likely never know. But the story goes at least that it was 1-2. And that is a good enough story. I liked it a lot. I liked a lot of the sentences that I put forth in this chapter. A fire anywhere is a fire everywhere. Love that. And thank you so much for joining me. I shall be back soon with chapter 50. So that'll be a lot of fun, I think.